So many of the best scary movies feature a creepy house in the woods. So I decided to make my own miniature version. Who do you think is behind the door? This spooky project is part of This Is Halfaween. Be sure to check out the video description for links to the host and all the other cool projects. And let's peek inside. Oh, looks like we've interrupted Jason having dinner. Doesn't look happy to see us. Okay, so for this project, I used my S1 laser to cut out a fairy house that I purchased on Etsy. Now, if you don't have a laser, you could always buy a birdhouse kit, or you can even buy a finished birdhouse and use these techniques to decorate it with. So I will be decoupaging papers onto the front and back of the house. Now, I know a lot of people will cut the paper first. I'm going to just add a thin layer of Mod Podge and then place the paper on top and use like a squeegee tool. You can also use something like an old gift card to help squeeze out the air bubbles and make sure that the paper is firmly on the surface. I'm going to set that aside to dry, and then after it's dry, that's when I cut off the excess paper. I'll use scissors to cut around the edges, and then I'll use a craft knife to cut out the little window spaces. I'm not worried about being super neat with this because I'm going to come back in later with a nail file and file off all those rough edges. Now with the front and the back here and all the little, I'll call them pegs there, I have to go in with my detail scissors and cut out those little pieces. Now again, I'm not being super careful with it because that is going to get hidden when I assemble the house in the next step. So as you can see, I'm just using a regular old nail file. I'm going to file down those edges, and typically you would seal this in with Mod Podge. I'm not going to do that just yet. First I want to distress it by dry brushing it with some black paint. So all I'm doing there is get a little bit of black paint on my brush, and then I wipe off the excess on a paper towel and then just kind of brush it over to give the house an aged look. Finally, I'm going to go in and paint all of the wood accents with the black paint. All right, now finally I get to start assembling. This is the part I've been so excited to see how it's all going to come together. I really like to use this glue because it has a fine point on one end and then a thick point on the other side. I'll be sure to put a link to that in the description so you know what that product is. And it dries really quickly, so I just have to hold it for a couple seconds and wait for it to set. And now I'm just following the instructions that came with the fairy house and gluing the sides on. Then I'm going to glue the roof on. And once I have that base put together, now I can take my Mod Podge and seal it. So not only am I sealing the paper that I decoupaged onto the surface, I'm also sealing up all those edges and joints so that my house won't collapse later under the weight of this cute roof. So there are the planks that I cut out. If you are doing this with a birdhouse, you could use popsicle sticks, paint them, distress them, and then glue those on. The file that I purchased, it came with the distressing already in the file. So like it scored lines with the laser to make the roof look distressed. So again, I'm using that fine point to glue on all the cute little accents. And now I'm ready to finish up the character who's going to go inside. This is another Etsy file that I purchased. It was a holiday set. So this little Jason is holding a turkey leg, which I thought would be kind of funny with this house. You know, like we've stumbled onto this creepy house in the woods and oops, we interrupted him having dinner. So I'm going to fill in the design with paint, and then I'll be ready to assemble it, which is pretty easy to do. I'm just going to be gluing that mask on and the little jacket pieces. The file that I purchased for this fairy house came with a cute little fairy that you put in the door. So, you know, this is just to show you how you can take something like a fairy house and turn it into a Halloween project, which I just love to do. I do Halloween 365 days a year. That's my jam. So our little Jason is coming together. I like to pick them up and make sure I've got all those pieces exactly where I want them to go, and then set that aside to dry. And while that is drying, I'm going to add the door to the front of the house. I had wanted to put hinges, um, but of course I couldn't find my teeny tiny hinges. So instead I opted for fabric tape because it's pretty strong. You could use duct tape as well, black electrical tape. Just putting it on the back there, taping it in place, and now I can swing that little door open and shut. Taking a look at everything we've done there. And now it's time to go in and add the little accents and details. So I took some vellum paper, glued that into the windows, and then I also took some dried moss and just glued that in different spots on the front and the side and the back of the house, just to help add some dimension and make it look old and creepy. Finally, I'm going to use hot glue to attach Jason to a little round wood base so he can stand up and he's ready to greet us. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you'll visit again. Be sure to check out the next video on the playlist for more spooky Halfaween fun.